I'm explaining a film from 2011 titled In Time. Spoilers ahead. Enjoy the content. All humans undergo genetic engineering to halt aging at 25, except the wealthy who can buy immortality. The scene starts with a man named Will wishing his mother a happy 50th birthday, but Rachel, Will's mother's name, still looks like a 20-year-old girl, so here it is true that aging stops at the age of 25. Rachel was given fewer than 3 days to work in a clothing factory for 2 days. Her biggest concern was that she would not see her son in the future. He granted a tiny child 5 additional minutes when he got to work since the child needed time to pay expenses. This indicates that, prior to the age of 25, the time stamp in his possession was not yet active, and that, in addition to the labor becoming more unpredictable, the pay was also declining.
Whoa, what is this?
So is a quota. Next.
That's a joke, right?
Next.
When Will gets to the pub that evening, his pal tells him there's a patron who may be as ancient as a century. Will recognized that the affluent man was being pursued by someone else. He went up to the man and informed him. Not long later, the chairman Fortis commanded a group of evil people known as the Minutemen, who enjoy robbing others of their time. Will assisted the wealthy guy in getting away from there, but the gang eventually caught up with them. They were able to go inside and hide in an abandoned structure, and the moment the man lost sight of them, they became friendly and conversed. Henry Hamilton is the wealthy man, and he resides in New Greenwich, a place for rich people. Even though Will is just 28 years old, Henry still appears as young as Will, despite the fact that he is already 105 years old. In contrast to Will, who want to live a long life, Henry states that he is bored of existing. Henry provided an explanation that made sense, namely that the daily increases in taxes and prices were intentional attempts to cause starvation death. However, they wouldn't perish if they had more time. Henry then inquired as to what he would do if he had the same amount of time as him. All Will could say in response was that he wouldn't waste time. Henry finds that he is giving everything he has when he wakes up early the next morning. Knowing that Wood would be surprised to see that the time has extended to a century when he wakes up, he only allots himself 5 minutes. Henry may be seen sitting on the bridge and waiting for his chance to run out there through the window. Henry appears to have died after suffering a heart attack as it ends. Will was running late to apprehend Henry, who had fallen from the bridge while being filmed by CCTV, and it would have been unsafe if he had been discovered. Following that, Will visited Belle's residence with his closest buddy, and before leaving, he handed Belle 10 years. Will said that he would take his mother to New Greenwich while he was away. Usually, his mother would take the bus home for an hour, but Will would take 2 hours instead. With time running out, Rachel eventually took off running. Will became anxious when he couldn't see his mother getting off the last bus, as he was waiting for her at the bus stop. He hurried to meet up with his mother right away, and as time was running short, they finally met. Sadly, Will had to lose his mother since Rachel's time ran out while she was still in his arms, and she had to pass away. When the timekeepers discovered Henry's body the next day, they had a suspicion that he had been murdered. He needs to cross time zone borders on his cab ride to New Greenwich today. The time will go shorter each time he passes. It would take us years to go to New Greenwich. Of course, because everyone who lives here is wealthy, the city appears to be quite opulent. Then, a female who appeared to be wealthy as well as attractive appeared to be like him. Following that, he checked into the hotel there and made his room choice, the most costly one, that evening. He then headed to the nearby casino. Will also joins other affluent individuals who are gambling at the casino, including banker Philippe Weiss, who is also in charge of the time system. Shortly afterward, the girl he had previously met arrived and took a seat next Philippe. He raised the stakes to 2 centuries. He had placed a rather large wager with 50 years. The conceited Philippe appears to be winning the game with 30 seconds left, but Will really emerges victorious. As a result, Will's time has considerably expanded to 1,100 years. When Philippe presents the girl to him, he feels bad over underestimating her. It turns out that the girl is Sylvia, Philippe's daughter. Tomorrow, she's inviting Will to a party. The timekeeper begins pursuing Will the next day to New Greenwich, as Will and Sylvia appear to be getting closer during the party. In fact, they are swimming in the sea behind the party venue.
I get it. You're out here.
The timekeeper shows up just as they are going to play cards once more. They begin questioning Will over the time he spent with Henry. Despite the fact that Will had described what had transpired, there were just 2 hours remaining for Will's assessment after all of his time was taken away since they still didn't believe it. There was a disturbance, so he revolted and held Sylvia captive in order to get away. Will just has an hour left, but they managed to escape. He attempts to get a tiny amount from Sylvia, but she refuses to give it to him since she still believes that he killed Henry. Rather than pressuring her to wait for a little while, Will instructed her to close her hands. He was worried that word would get out that Sylvia had that much time remaining. The automobile they were driving went over a trap and wrecked the following morning because they were fatigued and distracted. With barely 30 minutes remaining, Sylvia was completely absorbed by Fortis as they passed out the instant the stranger came. When Sylvia and Will realized this, they went to Boral's house to seek for assistance, but his wife informed them that Bural had passed away. Will felt lightheaded and unsure of what to do. Abruptly, he caught sight of Sylvia's diamond earrings, which might likely be pawned to gain some more time before they hurried off. It appeared that the pawn shop was going to close when they got there. Fortunately, Sylvia was able to fit the diamond into the opening beneath the moving door. Fortunately, even though the diamond was only worth that much for 48 hours, they still wanted to take it. Owing to time constraints, he claims to have abducted Sylvia and phones her home, demanding a ransom in exchange for 1,000 years, which he will transfer through the region time slot tomorrow. They waited for Sylvia's father to genuinely fulfill Will's request the next morning, hoping that he would. They had to part ways since Sylvia was dissatisfied and it turned out that her father had ignored Will's request. Will handed her a pistol in case she needed it before they left. After that, Sylvia contacted her father. When Will glanced at her, it appeared like Leon had aimed a pistol at him, so Sylvia fired in self-defense. As soon as he saw Leon lying down, he took his time and the automobile as well. They stopped a bystander's car and grabbed it, indicating that they still needed more time. As a result, the two of them ended up becoming the most sought people. Sylvia refused to go home when Will urged her to. Sylvia claims she can help Will receive the time he needs and that she wants to stay with him. They do, in fact, crash into her father's time-lending business. They succeeded in removing a bag filled with time machines, leaving the other items for the individuals present. The timekeeper was obviously unhappy as a result, and Boral's wife was also given a time machine. Following that, they carried on giving out the time to those in need at night. However, when Will and Sylvia were together at night, the timekeeper, who had been waiting outside, approached them. However, they were able to get away once more, and when they boarded the bus, the driver demanded extra money from them since they were now wanted fugitives. The minute guy was then told by someone where Will and Sylvia were. The minute man paid them a visit that evening. Will has just a few seconds remaining when Fortis dares him to a time war. Fortis has already stolen Will's time. Now that Will's final 5 seconds have successfully reversed the position, it is Will's chance to cut down on time. To make things safe, Will shoots the men first after losing a lot of time, and after a bloody struggle with time, Fortis ultimately perished. Soon after, Will left on became irritated as the loan interest rate went up by 37%, further suffocating the impoverished residents of the ghetto. In an attempt to lift Will's spirits, Sylvia claims that her father is a millionaire. When Sylvia visited her father the following day, he gave up. She had implied that her father was guarded by a number of bodyguards, but it appears that Will had dressed as one of them and was brandishing a gun at him. Afterwards, they proceeded to unlock her father's safe in order to obtain the million-year time savings. Leon hastened to locate them as the timekeeper became increasingly more agitated. After they nearly escape, Will keeps driving his car and smashes through the time zone border fence. Suddenly, Leon slams into their side. With less than an hour remaining, Will gave the children the time machine to share right now. Since the automobile was damaged, they fled right away, but Leon caught them from the front. Leon has just discovered that Will has 5 seconds remaining until he passes away. As Sylvia and Will are counting down the last 60 seconds, Will suddenly realizes that the timekeeper automobile has a time machine, so they both rush to the vehicle. Eventually, Will arrived to the car before Sylvia did, and he wasted no time in chasing after her because he didn't want to lose her the way he had lost his mother. This time, Will is successful in passing Sylvia the time, and they are reunited. At the film's conclusion, it is demonstrated that everyone can now acquire the time they require and that wealth and poverty are no longer relevant. Everyone is able to cross over to the new Greenwich time limit. As the movie comes to a close, Will and Sylvia are still on the run, and they are still robbing banks of money to give to the less fortunate. If you could subscribe to this channel, it would be greatly appreciated. I hope to see you again soon.